Good afternoon, this is me, the Center Ukraine Odesa. Our current briefing is dedicated to the situation in occupied Enerhodar and at occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Our speakers are Dmytro Orlov, mayor of Enerhodar. He is with us online. Good afternoon. And Yulia Khymerik, investigative journalist at Slidstvo.info. She is one of the author of investigation about what has been happening at the occupied nuclear power plant. But first, we will give floor to Dmytro. What is the situation in occupied Enerhodar and nuclear power plant? The situation does not improve, unfortunately, despite the fact that there is water and power supply. There is significant pressure of occupiers. This has started the next step, the forced passportization. So occupiers just visit people at home, especially when they know that people do not have Russian IDs. They conduct searches, they take people to, to, to torture, so this is the biggest pressure now. How do you think, what is the reason of such severe measures? Perhaps it can be explained by their unfavorable military state. They understand that they will not be there for long, and they want to involve the local population in military crimes. They force them to gain Russian passports for the local population, not to wait that much for the occupation and armed forces of Ukraine. As for the counter-offensive, Enerhodar is not far from the front line. What information do you get from locals? Do they feel the efforts of the armed forces of Ukraine aimed at liberation of their territories? People can hear explosions and booms all the time, days and nights, and they also feel that the armed forces of Ukraine are closer to them. People are waiting for a counteroffensive, especially the employees of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, because they are also forced to violate conditions of the license provided by a state nuclear management administration, and there is also the nuclear threat there, including to the pressure they feel when it comes to Russian passports. What is the situation at the nuclear power plant? What do you know from our forces, and also what do you know from the employees there? There are 3,000 of employees who still have access to the nuclear power plant, and we used to have 11,000 of people before the occupation. Only quarter of employees are still there. And those people who cannot be substituted work there, so they are licensed employees, who work in shifts, so they cannot be substituting using employees from the Russian Federation. And explosions are everyday phenomena, and there are also 1,000 soldiers of the Russian Federation, the armed equipment, and still the whole perimeter of the nuclear power plant is mined, as well as the whole coastline of the former Kakhovka reservoir. After the explosion at the dam there, we closely monitor the level of water in a cooling basin of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. What is the situation at that facility now? Does it have enough water for successful cooling of the nuclear power plant? According to information from the Enerhodar, the water level there is at the normal level, so although there is some significant decrease, but this is due to weather conditions because the evaporation in summer is more intensive comparing to other seasons. So the nuclear power plant has not been producing energy since September last year. So such regime, according to the information from NEC Enerhodar, allows to maintain the nuclear power plant for quite a long time. But we cannot predict the plans of occupiers as well as their behavior. Coming back to the flood, what were consequences for Enerhodar? That was the left bank of the Dnipro River, and we know that the left bank was damaged more than Kherson, which is on the right bank. Enerhodar is higher than the Kakhovka HPP. As for water supply, it is now provided thanks to wells. We have around 30 of them. So people have a smooth supply of fresh water. It has not been affected by the explosion. As for irrigation, so-called technical water, of course, we can see significant aftermath because people now need to transport water to irrigate their vegetation. Dmytro, I know that you don't have so much time, so now we will switch to Yulia Khymerik, who investigated tortures and the behavior of the Russian occupiers in Enerhodar and at nuclear power plant. Thank you for being with us, Dmytro. Yulia, the floor is yours. Can you share details about your investigation that you conducted together with Anastasia Stanko? The only thing that I would like to say now, in the news piece, following the results of this press conference, you will find the link to the investigation and you will be able to read it by yourself. During the investigation of the situation in Enerhodar and the nuclear power plant, we have learned that starting from the first day of the full scale of invasion, the occupiers have been torturing and kidnapping people who refuse to get Russian passports. They also force employees at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to conclude contracts with them. I have a contact there, a person, a man has been kidnapped 4 times. They even cut their fingers because he refused to sign a contract with Rosatom. Another woman has her pass blocked. She cannot attend her working place, and her relatives who also worked there were kidnapped by occupiers last year, and she doesn't have any information about their whereabouts, and the occupiers use the police station to torture people there. Sometimes they take people just from the street and bring them to torture chambers. There's several thousand of people who still work at the nuclear power plant, but my contact does not know how many people have signed contract with Rosatom. He knows for sure that those who have signed contracts did not do that voluntarily. only after they were tortured. Yuri Chernychuk has been appointed as the director of the nuclear power plant. He was the deputy chief engineer at the station, and we know that he voluntarily agreed to cooperate, not because of the tortures. We have also learned that the Kadyrov units, Ahmad 1, who at Zaporizhzhia, Alikhan Shavkhalov, nicknamed Legion, is in charge of that unit, and we know that he personally was in Enerhodar and controlled the city. The units change, but still they are the part of Ahmad. We also have Ahmad Grozny, headed by Anzor Bisayev. Anzor Bisayev is known to law enforcement bodies because he abducted a teenager in Buchansky area under Kiev, and he tortured that boy. We have also identified a range of Russian soldiers who were in Enerhodar and at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and we hope that our law enforcement bodies will take in account our information and everyone will be brought to liability. Thank you. Yulia, from what you've managed to learn through your sources there, and also as a result of the analysis that you have conducted, don't you have an impression that the Russian army will try to continue occupation of that city as long as possible? Or do they plan to do the same as it was in Kherson when they left the city of Kherson? I don't think that the situation will repeat as they left everything in Kherson and retreated. They have mined the nuclear power plant at least, and I think that they are planning some terrorist attack before they leave the city. So it is obvious that it is very difficult to storm the nuclear power plant because of the high risk. So it is now mined. It is kind of a fortress, and Ukrainian soldiers will try to encircle it. Yes, and I think that this is really the problem, and for sure we'll need the support of IAEA and the whole world, because this is Enerhodar is under the threat of the explosion of the terrorist attack. And we have information that has not been confirmed yet. And now they try to force employees there to turn on the energy block number 4, but employees try not to do this. What is the reason? We cannot understand what is in the heads of terrorists. Perhaps they want to organize some explosion there. And I thought that they wanted employees to include this nuclear power plant to Russian power supply lines. Yes, they're trying to do this gradually. So they have excluded it from the Ukrainian power supply lines. They organized kind of a fake campaign, and they try now connect this nuclear power plant to their lines. But mining is an attempt to make this place dangerous for a counteroffensive. Basing on the information that you've received from your interlocutors, when the torture started in the city, were they the same as in Kherson and in Kiev Oblast, when occupiers tried to find people with pro-Ukrainian position? Or was it just an attempt of putting pressure on people for them to collaborate with the occupiers? This is 2 in 1. So they put pressure on people, but not only mentally, psychologically, but also physically. They organize torture chambers in police stations. They kidnap people They use electroshock to torture them. They cut people. Thus, they try to force people to sign contracts with Rosatom to gain Russian citizenship. So these are war crimes against civilians, and not everyone could oppose that. Do you know how many people have left the city? How many people have managed to leave the city? I don't remember the exact number, but as we learned from there, so there's not so many people there. Some people were able to leave at the beginning of the occupation, but others were abducted, and it is unknown where they're staying now. Thank you. Thank you for presenting the results of your investigation. We will disseminate the text of your investigation through our Telegram channel, and we would like to call journalists to cover all these war crimes which are committed by the Russian Federation on the occupied territories of Ukraine. Thank you very much, Yulia, for your investigation. That was the last briefing for today. The next one will be on Tuesday. Please follow our announcements and stay tuned.